Hello and welcome to Monday Morning Movie Talk with Matt. I'm Matt, and this is a weekly show where I talk about the weekend box office numbers, make predictions for next week, and talk about any movies that I'm going to see this week. This is obviously for the week of June 5th through June 7th, so just this past weekend. And without further ado, let's get right into the numbers. So up first, we have Spy at number 1, which, if you watched last week, you know that my prediction was that it was actually going to be number 3, so slightly off, quite a bit off. San Andreas at number 2, Insidious Chapter 3 at number 3, Entourage at number 4, and Mad Max Fury Road at number 5. So Spy did 12 million more than I thought it would. I predicted around 18 million, which is around what Melissa McCarthy's other couple movies that she starred in have opened at. And this one I thought wouldn't do as well just because it's rated R, which means that a lot of teenagers can't see it. And if they do see it, they're seeing it by paying for another movie and sneaking in to see this one. So that Spy was at 30 million. San Andreas dropped to 26 million, which is about a 50% drop from last week. Then we have Insidious Chapter 3, debuted at 23 million. This actually did worse than I thought. I thought this was going to do at least 30 million just because the last Insidious Chapter 2, I think, did about 40 million opening weekend. But like I said, last week, I thought this one wasn't going to do quite as well as Insidious 2 just because it is not around the typical horror season. So I'm not surprised that this didn't do as well. And then number 4, Entourage. Man, I was way off with this. I thought this was going to do at least like a $40 million opening just because this is a big show on HBO. There's a lot of people that were excited to go see it. But I suspect that, I guess it only did 17 million or just shy of 18 million over the course of the whole week. It did open a couple days early, so I didn't think it was going to do quite as well. But I didn't think it was going to do this bad. I actually predicted it for number 1 at about 40 million, so I was way off. And then finally, Mad Max Fury Road has number 5 at just shy of 8 million, 7.97. So that one has been on the charts for 4 weeks, which is great. Hopefully it can eke out a couple more weeks. Maybe we'll see. See my predictions below. Okay, so the biggest thing that stands out is I was extremely wrong. The numbers look low compared to last week, but it's only actually about 7 million less for the box office total for the top 5 than last week. It's just we have a lot more movies making in the 20 plus budget or 20 plus range. So I guess that's about that for this week. So out this week, basically the only notable release this week is Jurassic World, which premieres June 12th, and I'm going to predict that it's going to destroy the box office this weekend. So if you don't know, where have you been hiding? This is the follow-up to the Jurassic Park franchise, and it features Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. And it's a new story featuring it's like the island they've reopened the theme park, and they're trying to cross-mutate dinosaurs to attract more people, and then one gets out and starts killing people on the park, and Chris Pratt has to try to save the day and stuff like that. So it looks good. If you haven't seen it or haven't seen any previews, I think they just released another trailer last night, so definitely check that out. And then an honorable mention for me goes out to Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. It's an indie movie about a high schooler who makes film parodies of classic films, and he becomes friends with a girl in his grade who is dying from cancer, and it's kind of how their relationship changes his outlook on life and stuff like that. It looks good, but I don't think it'll crack the top 5. So those are the two biggest, or not the two biggest, the biggest movie coming out this week. The rest of the movies that are kind of lackluster, I don't think they'll even remotely touch the top 5. And then, like I said, the indie movie, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, I'll probably see that, but I don't think it'll do very well. So moving on, my predictions for this week. I'm going to do a top 6 just because I think there is a chance at the number 6 overtaking the number 5. But here's my top 5. At number 1, Jurassic World, which I think will eviscerate the box office this weekend, with at least a $90 million opening. A lot of predictions are saying 100 million plus. I'm not quite sure if it'll do that. It is a PG-13 movie. It does play into the nostalgia factor for a lot of people that are like my age, or even maybe a little bit older, who saw these movies when they were younger, or saw the original franchise when they were younger. But the second and the third movie in the franchise didn't do very well, and I know a lot of people are worried because Chris Pratt is in it, and he's typically in comedies and stuff like that. And also the fact that they're covering genetic mutation instead of just normal dinosaurs have a lot of people worried that it's going to be less of like a monster movie and more of a action shooting, bring down the dinosaurs movie. But I think it'll do at least 90 million. I'm really excited to see it, regardless of what it is, just because we haven't been in this world in a while. And like I said, the last 2 movies haven't been very great, so I have hope that this one might be at least pretty good. For number 2, I think Spy will take number 2. It'll fall 45% to 16.5 million. The reason why I think it's going to drop so much is I think that if you haven't seen it this week, chances are if you're going to the movies next week, it's going to be to see Jurassic World. There's just no doubt in my mind that is going to be the biggest draw for next week. And I don't know. I don't see this. I don't see Spy having a long tail. I think it might be in the top 5 for like another week or 2, and then it'll probably drop out, if not before then. Number 3, I think San Andreas will fall 40% to 15.84 million. This keeps in line with about how much it's been dropping week over week. This will be the third, or this upcoming weekend will be the 3rd week that it's been out. And it just actually opened in, I think, 35 more theaters in the U.S., so maybe the numbers will stay inflated a little bit. For number 4, I think Insidious will fall to 40%, to 13.8 million. There's a chance that this could see a slight uptick, just like with San Andreas, but just because of word of mouth. If people went and saw it and it was a good horror movie, then it could do better. I think a lot of people were saying it was okay, a 7 out of 10. Nothing too special, and the plot was kind of weak, but oh well. And then this is where it gets interesting. Number 5, I think Mad Max will stay at number 5. I think it'll drop 40% to 4.7 million. I have a hard time believing that Me and Earl and the Dying Girl will beat 5 million. I have a hard time believing that any of the other movies that are coming out this week will beat 5 million. The only other contender would be my prediction for number 6, which is Entourage, which will fall 60% to 4.1 million. So there's there's $600,000 in between those. So there is a possibility that Entourage could do better than I thought. Could drop, like 50%. And then it would be beating out Mad Max, or there's a possibility that Mad Max could do slightly worse and drop, 50%, and then they'd be more in line with each other. So it's really kind of a toss-up between those two. But I think Mad Max has been hanging on for dear life. This is its 4th week in the box office, and next week will be its 5th. So if it stays in the top 5 for 5 weeks, then I think it'll have done pretty well. Domestically, that one has only done 130. Well, I say only 130. Let's say 131 million. Its total budget was 150, and that's not including marketing efforts. So obviously, that's not worldwide numbers, but the worldwide cut is a lot less. So I think it did well, but it didn't quite make its money back. At least not in the studio's eyes. But that doesn't mean that it was a bad movie, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to invest in more movies in the future, so there's hope still. Those are my predictions for the week, so let me know what you think in the comments below. And also, if you want to put your predictions for next week in the comments, that'd be great. I'd love to read them out, the following week or whatever. So if you like this content, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. We do a weekly movie and TV podcast on Saturday. We do a comic book club on Wednesday, which this week we're doing Invincible Volume 1, just issues 1 through 4. So if you like comics and that kind of stuff, you can tune in for that. We do that one live. And then going forward, I'm going to be picking up the video game podcast again, hopefully this week, if not next week. So subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And thank you.